All right. Again, I apologize for being so late on this live stream. I'll just give you the quiz answers. No, I would, but I won't. Not today. I did that. What, I did that last week. I have graded almost everyone's papers. I have 3 that I have not. Or I could just put it back where it needs to be. Let's try that.
Yeah.
Thank you for catching. Yeah. Of course. Of course.
We tried.
It has a black screen there, so I can't see what you.
Yeah. I can see it, and I look at my legs. Yeah, so that's fun. Okay, this is fine. We're gonna end up watching some videos anyways, so let me.
I think we've already watched.
Yes, the stuff that's related to the quiz today, we have already watched a lot of those videos. I included a link in case you wanted to rewatch them for extra educational value. Because everybody loves that extra effort to educational value. What we are going to watch today is one of my all-time favorite videos. Ah, dang. In order to make this show up on the live stream, I have to set it up to work on the live stream. Ah! Okay, so let's watch them YouTubes. What we're going to watch today is a short video on the iPhone reveal. This is one of my favorite videos of all time. So if you insult it, I'll insult you back. No, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, I've seen this.
Oh, I forgot to bring my...
I'm in. It's gonna be lit. Let's do this.
Hold on, I'm gonna go get my speaker, because sound quality on my computer is not nearly as good. Talk amongst yourselves. my perspective on that video. First of all, this presentation, in my opinion, is the foundation of what a lot of technical presentations are today. His level of, you got a haircut.
Wow.
God. Every time.
I'm like a dog. I'm just very easily distracted.
One time I'm actually paying attention, then
The thing about this presentation was he delivered it in such a way, you saw the audience reaction. The audience was eating out of the palm of his hand. If he could have made them cry if he just said cry on command, just make me your king, and they would have rallied in the streets. It was an extraordinary presentation that encompassed every level. He introduced the information he needed to in a way that was extremely engaging. We just watched a 10-minute video, and I don't know about you, but I'm ready to watch the other 50 minutes of that presentation. But I won't do that. Not to you. Even the presentation style, he's wearing a black turtleneck, walking around in jeans. You will see a lot of people in TED Talks replicating that look. In fact, I would walk around in a black turtleneck and jeans if I felt like I could get away with it. But I'm not Steve Jobs. I can't. That's right. The burden of trying to replicate Steve Jobs is too much. So instead, I dress like a nerd. So the thing that makes this presentation so good is that it is a combination of powerful delivery techniques mixed with extraordinary content. One of the reasons why we're discussing this video right now is because he talks through the engineering design process for the development of the iPhone. He mentions the constraints. Well, the constraints for other phones are, everything has to have some kind of input mechanism, and other phones solved it with keyboards. He said, well, we can have an input mechanism. It doesn't have to be a keyboard. We can use something else. He broadened the definition of the problem, and by doing so, discovered a solution that now today, all of us, if you look at your cell phones, like what Jace is doing right now, we don't have buttons on our phones. And I would be surprised if any of you have styluses, although styluses have made a shocking return. Do you really?
No, it's in my room.
It's like for your phone, though?
I mean, the school gave us the pens that are also the soft.
Right.
That doesn't count.
Well, I mean, I know the Samsung Notes always have a stylus in the phone.
Yeah.
People use styluses for drawing.
Yes, and that's also true. So stylus is,
Until like the iPhone, the iPhone was
you have one right there.
Oh, that's the pen I was talking about.
Yeah. So the irony of this is that Apple says, who wants a stylus? And yet we still have styluses 13 years later.
I made an Apple stylus now, too.
They did. They created the Apple Pen. Which is hilarious irony. Because who wants a stylus? But then they sell you a stylus.
So there you go, make money.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way he framed the problem reimagined the phone market. And it still has impacts today. Nobody has come up with a better design for a phone than the iPhone. We've got foldable screens. We have phones that have styluses in them now that are touch screens and styluses. We have phones that are like this friggin' big. We have so many different technologies, but they're all derivations of the original iPhone. They're all solving the exact same problem that Steve Jobs just walked through. Is this the best method? We don't know. There is still a possibility that someone in the very near future is going to reimagine the phone entirely. Because all of us now have had experiences with the struggles of touching your phone. And what happens when, your hands are wet and your phone doesn't work right? What happens when you have multiple touches or your screen gets cracked? It makes touching your phone challenging. There you go. We haven't yet found a better solution, which is why all of the phones look alike. The problem that Steve Jobs presented is still relevant today. It is still the same problem that every single phone manufacturer is still trying to solve. But that said, if we just change the functional requirements and the constraints and apply our measures of quality, someone could, with enough creativity and enough scientific knowledge, come up with a better phone. I've seen concepts for phones where it's a projection that goes up your arm, and you actually do the stuff on your arm. That eliminates the need for a screen, which means your screen never gets dirty because you're projecting onto something. Nobody's ever built it, but it was somebody had a concept, and they did a bunch of, I think they produced one YouTube video, and it was entirely CGI. A brilliant concept, great idea. Nobody's been able to make it work. Somebody could, though. You could. Figure out the ways to do it. Okay? The engineering design process is something that every single manufacturer has to tackle when coming up with a product. And when they do it well, it revolutionizes the industry. And Apple, one thing that Steve Jobs does really well is he understood how to frame problems really, really well. He wasn't the inventor of the Segway. He revolutionized industry after industry after industry, which is the reason why Apple was the first trillion-dollar industry in history. Some of which come because of the patents that they mentioned in this video, which are still active today. Some of them. The maps. Not quite. Okay, so it's not always true that somebody 14 years ago has a vision of the future like Steve Jobs had. And the vision that he had went all the way back to 2002 and even before then. He saw this coming years before the technological capability for making these ever existed, because he understood the problem framing. And the problem framing led him to have a scientific team that developed multi-touch. They looked into integrated hardware components so that they could run OS X on a phone. He saw all of this, and he saw all of it coming. And they invested a ton of money in this, and it paid off. Which is why Apple is still a relevant company today, when in the late 90s, people thought they were going to go bankrupt. Okay? When I talk about the relevance and the need for doing problem framing, it's because of stuff like this. So, for your quiz, what you've got to do is we've already talked a little bit about Boston Dynamics, and I've showed you a bunch of videos because I really love Boston Dynamics. It's a lot of fun. So the goal here is I want you to look at the progression of the robots through the years and apply the same kinds of thinking. Did they have the same problem that they set out to build, 12 years ago, I think was, well, they really started like 18 years ago, their first robot, but it was like 12 years ago that they really started investing into Big Dog and those kinds of things. Did they have the same vision for a robot back then? Did they have the same functional requirements? Did they have the same constraints? Did they have the same measures of quality? They clearly had a vision for where they wanted to be, but if you ask me, that vision was not Spot. Spot was something that developed later, which is also why they spawned off their products like Atlas, and then their box-moving robots. Everything changed. When they decided to go from a gasoline engine to electric batteries, everything changed there too. So your 3 questions for this quiz are, How do the functional requirements change? Functional requirements specifically relate to how things work, or what things do. State some of the measures of quality, and last, do the later robots perform better in terms of the measures of quality? Okay, those are your 3 questions. It's due by the end of today. I have your papers. I need to put their grades into my book, so if you wait a little bit, I can do that. I don't have your paper yet, and I don't have your paper yet, so I apologize. I'll have to get those to you on Monday. But I will have everyone else's paper graded and ready to go, although Mason, you are gonna have to give me a few seconds. I just have to finish that. I'm gonna go grab those. Before I give you your paper back, as an FYI, I graded all of your papers hard. Some of you did really well, and I didn't have a whole lot of comments to put on your paper. Some of you did not do so well, and you'll probably want to fix them. Now, I gave you comments. I wrote all over these papers. The goal of writing on these papers is the process of being a good writer, and specifically a good technical writer, is that it takes making mistakes, fixing those mistakes, doing it all over again. Okay? If you write a perfect paper the first try, great. Okay, wonderful. If you don't, the way you get to be good is by doing it over and over again. Okay? It's something where the revisions that you make tend to this is so weird. I need you as my cameraman now, Duncan.
I am a good cameraman.
I've been thinking about doing that for this entire year.
That's fantastic. You guys thinking alike here. But you have the ability to resubmit. You can use the same link that you submitted your original paper through. That link is still active. So if you don't like the grade you got, if you got a 97 and you really, really want 100, I will grade your paper again. Implementing all of the changes that I gave you on your papers, if you do all of them, you will get 100%. I listed out every reason why I took off points on your papers. Okay? So, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. We're going to turn these papers in. You will have to turn in that document. I will regrade them by the end of the semester. You may have to let me know that you handed in a paper so that I can regrade it again. But